I didn't mind that she had guy friends. I really didn't. We weren't exclusive, not officially. But there was a rhythm. We slept over at each other's places. We cooked dinner together 3 nights a week. When her mom had surgery, I was the one in the waiting room, holding her iced coffee. So maybe we didn't have the label, but we had the closeness. Or at least I thought we did. Then came him. Ty. That was his name. Some coworker from her office who started popping up in stories more often. First as a joke. Then as a punchline. Then as a photo on her Instagram, his arm casually draped over her shoulders, captioned, "My chaos twin." I didn't say anything. Not at first. Because every time I even raised an eyebrow, she'd laugh and say, "He's just a flirty friend. You know how he is. Totally harmless." I didn't know him. But I knew the way her voice changed when she said his name. I knew the pause before she put her phone face down. I knew the difference between harmless and hiding. Still, I said nothing. Because that's what I did back then, quietly negotiated my worth in the spaces she left ambiguous. Things shifted slowly. She stopped staying over. Said she needed more me time. She stopped responding to texts with her usual sarcasm. Replaced them with dry one-liners and emojis that felt like placeholders. I asked once, only once, if something was going on between her and Ty. She rolled her eyes and said, "Wow. Insecure much?" I laughed. Played it off. But it settled like acid in my gut. Then one Friday, she called me out of nowhere. Said she needed to talk. Her voice was sharp, like she was bracing herself. She said Ty had ghosted. Just like that. One day he was kissing her in a bar bathroom and texting her good morning. The next, nothing. Blocked. Vanished. And then came the real kicker. "I'm short on rent this month. Think you could spot me? Just half. I'll pay you back." I was quiet. She added, "Please. I don't know who else to ask. Everyone thinks I've got it together." I wired her the money. No hesitation. Because back then, I still thought love looked like rescue. Weeks passed. She was cold, then warm, then cold again. She'd send drunk texts that read like regrets, then delete them by morning. She'd call me just to vent, then hang up before I could say how my day went. Every time I pulled back, she'd reel me in with some version of, "I miss you," or, "No one knows me like you do." And I believed her. Because I needed to. The unraveling came quietly. She started seeing someone new. Some artist. He wore rings on every finger and talked about sacred geometry. I only knew because she posted a story of his dog licking her face. No explanation. No warning. Just that image. Soft. Intimate. When I asked her about it, she said, "Don't make this about you. I told you we weren't exclusive. But you asked me for rent money." She shrugged. "You didn't have to say yes." I realized then, I wasn't her partner. I was her utility. I stopped responding. Blocked her number. Closed the door she kept waltzing through whenever her life cracked. And for weeks, it was radio silence. Until one afternoon, I got an envelope. Inside was a crumpled check for half the rent. No note. Just a sticky note with one word. Settled. It wasn't closure. It was a receipt. But that was enough. Because finally, I wasn't owed anything. And I owed nothing in return. And in the quiet that followed, I started to hear myself again. And I liked what I heard. Healing didn't come like a wave. It came like background noise, the kind you almost forget is playing until it stops. I didn't wake up one day suddenly fine. But I noticed things. Food tasted better. Music hit differently. My apartment didn't feel like a waiting room anymore. A few months passed. I focused on work. On my friends. On remembering what it felt like to show up for myself. Then she texted. It was a selfie. She was at some concert. Wearing that jacket I once bought her on a rainy trip to Seattle. No caption. Just the image. I didn't respond. 3 days later, she sent another message. I saw a dog that looked like yours. Thought of you. Again, I said nothing. Then came the guilt bait. You're really just gonna ignore me? I wanted to type a paragraph. Maybe 10. But I didn't. I just wrote back one line. You ghosted me before I even left. No reply after that. Months later, I saw her downtown. She didn't see me. She was laughing at brunch with someone new. The artist was gone. This one looked like a tech guy. Clean, calculated. And I realized I wasn't angry. Not because she'd moved on. But because I had too. Quietly. Fully. Without making it someone else's responsibility to notice. I started dating again. Not immediately. Not recklessly. I met someone named Danny at a coffee shop. She was reading a book I loved. That was the start. Danny didn't need saving. She didn't flirt as a weapon. She didn't use silence as punishment. She asked real questions. Listened to the answers. One night, we sat on my couch and she asked, "What's something you never said out loud about your last situation?" I thought for a long time. Then said, "I kept trying to be someone worth staying for, to someone who never planned to stay." She nodded. No pity. No judgment. Just understanding. That was the moment I realized I'd stopped bleeding. She texted me again last week. "Hey. I know we ended weird. I just hope you're okay." I didn't reply. Because I was okay. Really, truly okay. And some doors don't need to be slammed shut. Some just need to stay closed. Quietly. Permanently. And that's exactly where I left her. The funny thing about closure is that it rarely comes how you expect. It's not a clean goodbye. It's not a final conversation where everything is said and understood. More often, it's just the absence of ache. The absence of reaction. I saw her again. I was on a run, cutting through the park like I always did when I needed to think. She was sitting on a bench, alone. No dog. No guy. Just her and a coffee, staring out at the little lake like it owed her something. I almost kept running. Almost. But there's a kind of stillness that invites you to pause. So I did. She looked up. Eyes narrowed slightly in recognition. Then softened. "Hey," she said. "Hey." It had been nearly a year. "You look different," she added. I did. I felt different. And I think that showed more than anything. "You look calmer," she said. I didn't ask how she was doing. I didn't want to open doors I'd already bricked over. I just wanted to say, she continued, "I was a mess back then. I didn't realize how much damage I was doing until you were gone." I nodded. "Takes distance sometimes. I read that line you wrote on your blog. The one about being someone worth staying for, to someone who never planned to stay." I raised an eyebrow. "Didn't know you still followed it." She gave a half smile. "I don't. But someone sent it to me." "Of course they did." "It wasn't about you," I said. "But it was," she replied. "And that's okay. You were honest." We sat in silence for a moment, the air between us holding the weight of everything unspoken. "I'm not here to reopen anything," she said. "I just wanted you to know you weren't crazy. You saw it all. You just hoped harder than I deserved." I didn't say anything. And that, I think, was its own kind of power. Danny and I moved in together that fall. Her apartment was too small. Mine had too many echoes. We found a new place with sunlight and bad insulation and a view of the bakery downstairs. We grew together slowly. Deliberately. Like two people who'd seen what rushing did to love and wanted no part of that again. I told her about the park moment. She didn't flinch. She just asked, "Did it feel like closure?" "No," I said. "It felt like validation." "Good," she replied. "You deserve that." One night, over wine and candles, Danny asked me if I thought people like her ever reach out because they genuinely regret it, or if it's just guilt dressed up as nostalgia. I thought about it. "Sometimes it's both," I said. But that doesn't mean we owe them anything either way. She smiled. Remind me to keep you around. You won't have to. Months passed. Then years. I published a book. Not about her. About what came after her. The quiet rebuild. The lessons in boundaries and softness, and why saying no can be the most intimate form of self-respect. It did well. Not because it was loud, but because it was honest. I got a letter. No return address. Inside was a handwritten note. Your silence taught me more than your presence ever could. I hope you're still writing. And I hope she's good to you. I folded it once. Then twice. Then slid it into the back of my drawer. Not to hold on, but to remember how far I'd come. And how little of me still lived in her memory. Because the truth is, love isn't just about who stays. It's about who helps you stay with yourself. And I'd finally found that, in Danny, yes, but mostly in me. The morning after the book launched, I woke up to silence. Not emptiness. Not absence. Just a gentle, steady kind of quiet that doesn't ask you to brace for something. Danny was already up, sitting on the windowsill with her tea, reading emails. She smiled when I walked in, real, sleepy, unbothered. Already sold out in 3 cities, she said. You did it. I kissed her shoulder. We did it. Because even though my name was on the cover, Danny had edited the first draft. Proofed the second. Pushed me when I doubted every page. She held space for every rewrite, every night I didn't know how to end a chapter, every sentence that reopened something I thought I'd already closed. 6 months later, I got an invitation to speak at a panel on healing and authorship. I almost said no. I'm not a spotlight guy. Never have been. But Danny looked at me and said, if it helps just one person feel less alone, it's worth it. So I went. The panel was fine. Predictable. Polished. The usual questions. Where do you get your inspiration? Was it hard writing about pain? Have the people in your book read it? That last one always landed a little heavier. Yes. She'd read it. And she hadn't reached out again. And that, I'd come to realize, was a gift. Later that night, I walked off stage and someone tapped me on the shoulder. He was maybe early 20s. Nervous energy. Holding my book with both hands. Can I ask you something? Of course. He looked down, fidgeting with the corner of the page. How do you stop wanting to be the exception to someone who keeps choosing others? I didn't answer right away. Then, you stop when it starts costing you more than it's ever going to return. You stop when your silence brings more peace than their attention ever did. He nodded slowly. His eyes glazed but steady. That's the part one struggle with. The silence. Yeah, I said. We all do. Until we don't. He smiled. Tucked the book under his arm. Walked away. Danny and I adopted a dog. Not a symbolic gesture, just a mutt that barked too loud at mail trucks and stole socks. We named her Murphy. She liked to sleep between us, one paw stretched over Danny like she was claiming her. Sometimes I'd catch myself staring at the life we built. At our fridge covered in Polaroids, at the shelf full of mismatched mugs, at Danny dancing barefoot in the kitchen. And I'd think, this is it. Not a movie scene. Not a climax. Just the deep comfort of being known without performance. And then one Sunday, a familiar name popped up in my inbox. Her. The subject line just said, Hey. I hovered over it for a full minute. Then clicked. The message was short. I saw your panel clip. You looked well. I just wanted to say you were right, about all of it. I'm in therapy now. Finally. And I'm sorry for what I put you through. I hope you're happy. Truly. I read it twice. Then closed the window. Didn't reply. Not out of pettiness. But because she said everything she needed to. And I didn't need to say anything at all. I once thought forgiveness meant conversation. That it required confrontation. Closure. A clean ending. But what I've learned is this. Forgiveness is sometimes just deciding to stop hurting yourself on behalf of someone else's past. It's the moment you realize their story no longer writes yours. And it's quiet. So quiet, you might miss it if you're still looking for fireworks. But when you feel it, you'll know. And when it finally comes, it doesn't look like power. It looks like peace. Peace isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself. It just grows quietly in the spaces where chaos used to live. The week after I ignored her email, I felt lighter, not relieved, not triumphant. Just clear. It was the kind of clarity you don't even know you've been craving until it finally arrives. I didn't reread the message. I didn't revisit the old photos. I didn't touch the drawer where that old letter once lived. Because when you've finally outgrown something, the past starts to feel like a borrowed shirt that no longer fits. Familiar, but not yours anymore. Danny noticed. "You've been different lately," she said one morning, over coffee. "Not tense. Just still." I smiled. "I think I stopped chasing echoes." She smiled back. "Good. We don't need noise to feel full." Later that year, Danny and I took a trip to Ireland. A whim. A deal we found online. No itinerary, just wandering. Coastlines, pubs, quiet roads lined with stone fences and sheep. One night, in a town I can't pronounce, we were sitting in the back of a dim little bar. A local musician was playing something slow and mournful on an acoustic guitar. Danny was sipping whiskey, barefoot again even in the pub, and I asked her, "Do you think we met at the wrong time, or the right one?" She thought for a long moment. Then said, "I think we met when you were finally done pretending someone else was home." I didn't respond. I just reached across the table, took her hand. Because she was right. Months later, we were walking through a weekend market. Someone tapped me on the shoulder. It was her. The one who'd started it all. She looked older. Softer. Like someone who had learned the hard way. "Hey," she said. "Hey." She looked at Danny. "This her?" I nodded. "Yeah. This is Danny." Danny smiled, polite but unreadable. There was an awkward pause. Then she said, "You look settled." "I am." She nodded. "I'm happy for you. Really. I hope you are too. I'm trying." And that was it. No apologies. No attempts to rewrite anything. Just a moment. A brief overlap in two lives that once tangled and tore. We walked away. Danny didn't say anything for a block. Then she asked, "You okay?" I looked at her. "More than okay." Because healing isn't a finish line. It's not an award you hold up to the world. It's a choice. Repeated. Quietly. Consistently. To show up for yourself. Even when no one's clapping. To leave doors shut that only ever let in drafts. To build something slow and warm with someone who doesn't need you to bleed to prove you love them. I used to think the best love stories were the ones that burned. Now I know. The best ones are the ones that last. Not because they're dramatic. But because they're real. And they don't ask you to shrink. Only to stay.